Okay, we are recording.
Good morning, Commissioners. District 1. District 2. Present. District 3.
Present.
District 4. Absent. District 5.
Present.
District 6.
Present.
District 7. Absent. District 8. District 9.
District 9, once again, the home of Nora and Nick, the Bald Eagles, is present.
District 10.
Present.
District 11, vacant. District 12. District 12. District 13.
Present.
District 14. And place 15.
Here.
You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pacina. Good morning, Commissioners. Great to see you again. This is the briefing for the Dallas City Plan Commission. Today is Thursday, November 3rd, 2022, 9:06 a.m. Commissioners, we're going to jump right into the zoning cases. We'll swing back to the briefing by Ms. Alguerre.
She's not, so let's go to the minor, and then, because she's right on her way.
Okay, well then let's begin with the minors. And for the record, Commissioner Popkin is in the chamber. Good morning, Ms. Carrasco.
Good morning, Commissioners. Make sure we can see my present. Can everybody see my presentation before I proceed? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. My one case this morning is M212047. It is a request to amend an existing development plan for a public school other than open enrollment charter school use on property zone PD 641, located on the southeast corner of Claremont Drive and Telegraph Avenue, Bales Elementary, a little over 10 acres. The request is to allow for modifications to reflect the existing dumpster configuration, the addition of 927 square feet entry vestibule, and a 685 square foot addition to the service area for the school. No other changes are being requested. General location of the PD, zoning map, aerial map, a proposed development plan, and zoomed in showing where the new entry vestibule and building addition will be. Existing development plan. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carrasco. Questions, Commissioners? Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Pepe, good morning, sir.
Good morning. One moment.
Commissioner Popkin, do you want this case briefed today? I know that it's going to be held to December 11th.
I think we could skip the briefing. I know the applicant has a presentation this afternoon.
Okay.
Does that work? Do we need to do the briefing or no presentation this afternoon? Okay, let's skip the briefing then. Thank you.
She said no. Thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. So then we go with Mr. Mulkey for number 3. Pardon me, that's also going to be held to...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I didn't hear what happened on number 2.
Number 2 is going to be held under advisement to December 11th, and we will brief it then. Number 3 is also going to be held under advisement to December 15th.
Could I ask a question there?
Please.
Because this case needs to be re-advertised.
But I believe Mr. Baldwin has in the deed restrictions and all the other paperwork to meet tomorrow's deadline. So if it needs to be re-advertised, could it be put under advisement until the 17th of this month? Do you have time to re-advertise it? You do? No. I'm sorry.
It's for you.
Okay, this case needs to be re-advertised. Can it be re-advertised for the next hearing? Every-
No,
No?
no, we
Okay.
were all,
The notices are going out tomorrow, so we're
Okay,
kind of
all
like.
right. All right, then what December is it? Thank you.
So December 15th it is. Commissioner Young?
Yes, Mr. Chair, on case 2, I thought I heard you say December 11, which is a Sunday.
Thank you very much. It's December 15th. Can't read my own gibberish here, so I'm glad that you're paying attention. Thank you. No, we don't have a special hearing on Sunday. It will be the 15th, yes. December. Yeah. So both cases 2 and 3 held under advisement December 15th. We'll brief both then. Case number 4 has also been taken off the consent agenda, and we will hear that today. Back to Mr. Pepe. For the record, Commissioner Huck is online and joined us at 9:07 a.m. Good morning. And Commissioner Blair also joined around the same time. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's get started. I think we should be able to see online.
But I got them all.
Okay, this is the 212252. This is an application for a new specific use permit for a commercial amusement inside with a dance hall on property zoned Plan Development District 784, the Trinity River Corridor Special Purpose District, on the southwest line of South Riverfront Boulevard between I-30 and I-35. It's about 0.65 acres. And it is located just south of downtown off of the Trinity.
Sorry.
Here's the aerial map. And you can see it's on Riverfront. There's a building on site at this time, parking lot behind it, and the Trinity levee behind that. So to the northeast, there is liquor store use. To the east, there's restaurants. To the south, there's undeveloped property. To the southwest, there's the Trinity floodplain and levee. And to the northwest, there's bail bonds offices, as well as the I-35-30 interchange. So this is the history of the PED. As you know, it was approved in 2008. It generally has a form-based zoning, and it's written into a particular regulations for each use. And in this case, PD 784 requires a SUP for commercial amusement inside, and it also does not allow for eligibility for auto renewal. And they're seeking the SUP for that use, limited to a dance hall, which dance hall is a subset of the commercial amusement inside use. And the applicant is proposing a site plan utilizing the existing structure, a 6,720 square foot structure built in 1952, all of which is planned to be used as the commercial amusement inside use. And that is the definition of commercial amusement, which is a facility wholly enclosed in a building that offers entertainment or games of skill to the general public for a fee. This includes, is not limited to adult arcade, adult cabaret, adult theater, amusement center, billiard hall, bowling alley, children's music center, dance hall, motor track, or skating rink. The applicant is proposing to operate with a dance hall. And further, section 51A 4.21 states procedure for submission of an SUP. This includes like a site plan, conditions, and a traffic analysis, impact analysis if deemed necessary. Staff is to determine the operations warrant a TIA to assess the transportation and engineering needs of the site within the context of an SUP review for use. Staff has notified the applicant of this determination, but has not received a TIA at the time of publication. Here is the proposed site plan as it exists today. So that is the existing building as it exists and is built out with parking behind for the most part. It also depicts
To another agenda. Which one do you want to check? February?
So that's the site plan as it operates. It does have a detail on the parking amounts, which are accommodated through provision on-site, parking agreements nearby, and bike racks, and that does make them break even on the requirement based on the totals of use provided here. So as for the site, here's the building looking across Riverfront. We're looking west, and then another angle slightly farther north up Riverfront. This is the property to the south. This is property across Riverfront, auto service center, restaurant, and that's the liquor store across Riverfront. And then that's looking up Riverfront north towards 3530. And so the proposed conditions are as follows. They're typical. They call for 2 years, hours of operation from noon to 2 a.m. Monday through Sunday. And those are, and the other standard conditions. So staff recommendation is to hold under advisement until December 15th. That is for submission and review of traffic impact analysis per the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. Questions, Commissioner Popkin?
I have a question about the TIA. The applicant mentioned something about future work planned on the street, including a turn lane in the middle of the boulevard. Is this something that you have knowledge of? What's going on there?
My understanding is that there is a bond program for some improvements on the street. Can't confirm from Public Works if that will include improvements on this site or not. We can't confirm that. So as a result, we're asking for an analysis on the site because this operation will be, going on whether there are improvements from that bond on this site in particular, which we can't guarantee. So that's why we're asking for the analysis.
Okay, so otherwise the TIA is fine. They're meeting all the requirements. The traffic patterns are going to be okay.
Well, that's what we say we can't assess necessarily at this time. That's what the analysis would be for. There is not an analysis at this time that's been undertook, so that's why we're requesting it. The report either calls for that or it has some recommendations as to spatial recommendations that could alleviate the concerns of engineering staff as well. So those are in the report as well.
Such as having a left or right turn lane cut in the middle of the median? Is that part of the question?
The alternate to the TIA recommendation includes removing the secondary driveway that enters there off of Riverfront. You can see that there's 2 driveways in the front of the property. So that's one of the recommendations in alternative to provision of a TIA. You can see that driveway here, as well as bringing the driveway on the southeastern portion, this driveway, shrinking that to match code, which is not at this time. So those are recommendations of engineering staff in lieu of a TIA.
Oh, that second drive is wider than spec?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Is the first drive not the type of Uber drop-off that we've been talking about needing in lots of scenarios with the new resurgence of, or I guess surge of use of Ubers and things like that?
My understanding, well, but at the same rate, then there's no provision for sidewalk across the front, and the distance also is an issue, but there would still be space for drop-offs behind, since presumably there's an entrance behind, but they have space on site still. It's not like we're filling up the entire parcel here and there's no room for that. So there's still space for that behind. But that was the engineering recommendation, is that we'd have a cleaner, safer front if we closed one driveway and right-sized the other.
Okay, and
Yeah.
so it's in an effort to increase the walkability along Riverfront that we're kind of requesting these changes to the site, essentially?
Yes, which is the stated goal of the PD and the area plan. But these are not just improvements, but they're bringing them into modern code more so than the property was built out originally.
And it seems like the real question is whether that bond program will be expanding the sidewalks on either side of Riverfront the way Riverfront has been redesigned further north, whether they're doing that extensive work, in which case the city might well be building this sidewalk for the property owner. If this property were vacant and not being redeveloped at this time, would the city just leave it untouched? Because currently there are no sidewalks on any of the properties along this entire stretch, so it's kind of weird to make these guys jump through hoops.
Yes, no, I know what you're talking about. That is the existing condition as it is. But this is a new use. So I mean, initially, what we're asking for is the traffic analysis, so we can assess the conditions of site. Professional recommendation of engineering is that, well, these are the suggestions that would help alleviate it. So it's, the primary was, let's look at a TIA so we can get a lay of the land and figure out what would make it better. But we have professionals working with our engineering folks, and so that would be, well, likely a finding of a TIA. So they offered that as a potential solution that we could encode in SUP conditions. And then to circle back to the bond, I can't confirm that, but I'll see if we can get David to confirm that at some point today.
I recognize bond programs are often years in the making and it takes a long time to design stuff. So please, if you guys are able to get an answer on this, I think that would be really helpful in this case. But also what I'm hearing you saying is the transportation staff are recommending that where we have ride-share drop-off areas, that they not be in front of the building, especially if it prohibits walkability in a very walkable area, that we're encouraging those drop-offs to be around the backs of the buildings.
I wouldn't say necessarily that's like an overall policy or opinion, but in this case, this driveway orientation and this lack of flow along the front was an issue that they identified. And I'm saying that in this case, if that weren't there, there's still a significant amount of room behind for that kind of thing.
Okay, so it seems like there's still a lot of things that need to be sorted out before we make a determination on how much we're going to make this property owner do to get their SUP. So I agree we should hold this to the December 15th meeting.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Yes, I see that the hours for the dance hall are noon to 2 a.m. Is it their intention to run a dance hall those hours? Or I know right now it's a restaurant, and are they adding a dance hall component? This location has been a topless bar in the past. They're not planning to run a sexually oriented business, are they?
I don't know about that nature of the business, but if that's covered under the dance hall, that's
The police?
That's kind of outside of our portion of the review, but I can't say that. But those are the proposed hours, and those would apply to the dance hall use because they have the by right use for restaurant now. So your hours are, they could certainly have different hours outside of those for restaurant use. But as we know that the dance hall use is going to be separate, but the review portion doesn't include or speak to the sexually oriented possibility.
Another question about the traffic, because what I'm hearing so far is they're looking at the configuration of the drives and possibly median turns. Are they taking into consideration what the traffic is like along the stretch of Riverfront late night? with the adjacency of Fuel City and the daiquiris to go with the double drive-through, which makes it look like Mardi Gras?
I think that's something that the impact analysis should take into account, because they look at peak hours for the area, for the use, those kinds of things.
Because peak in this area would be late weekend, late nights.
That makes sense, yes. So that would be looked at in the analysis if it were to occur.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. Stay with you, case number 5. At this point, commissioners, case number 5 is still on consent. It's one of only 2, and we'll keep the suspense to see if either one of those 2 come off, so.
Lovely. Okay, this one is Z212263. And this is an amendment to Subdistrict 3B, Tract 1 within Plan Development District 317, the Cedars Area Special Purpose District, located on the southeast corner of Cockrell Avenue and McKee Street. Area requested 3.66 acres. And it's located in the Cedars. Here's the site as it exists today. It is undeveloped, and it is against the DART red line, blue line right away on the northeastern portion. So built out to the northeast and the east is multifamily, as well as other residential uses. To the southeast, there's industrial indoor, and that it also exists to the southwest. There's police station, central headquarters to the west, structured parking directly to the northwest, and office to the northwest as well. So as the history of PD 317, it was approved in 1989. It has 7 subdistricts. Subdistrict 3B, of which this use is located within, has Tract 1 and Tract 2. And the PD has been amended 13 times overall as a whole. Subject site is currently undeveloped and located within Tract 1 of Subdistrict 3B, and that does allow the multifamily use by right, since generally the PD 317 is a mixed-use PD, office, multifamily, retail, industrial, and hotel uses. And currently, the PD subdistrict for Tract 1 is coded specifically for a shared access development. The proposed changes to the PD text are to reorient the subdistrict provisions to allow for a single lot multifamily development. So as for this site, this is as it exists today off of McKee Street, looking southeast. And this is Cockrell looking northeast. And this is right in the middle of the site, on site looking northwest, the DART rail being on the right, the police headquarters being in the left of frame. And then this is the eastmost portion of the site, also undeveloped, but we're on Wall Street with the DART rail behind us here. And then this is some of the surrounding uses, namely DART right-of-way, as it's built out with our subject site on the left. And that is surrounding uses of multifamily, located east across the DART right-of-way. And then this is looking up north towards the station. It's within frame here in the left side of the image. It's very close. So that was certainly a consideration in the case. And this is the structured parking to the northwest of the site, and parking lot for the police HQ. So as for the primary development standards are not being modified in a major way, either for the subdistrict or this development. They did ask for a minor change from 80% to 85% lot coverage for a little flexibility. Their development plan does not exceed 80 or 85. but they asked for flexibility when they get later down the road. There have been some site constraints throughout their development process that have led them here today, but that's the only change to the primary development standards that they're asking for. Otherwise, the other provisions that exist and are, some are being modified. Within the PD subdistrict there's a 15% landscape area requirement that is meant to remain. There's a 5% open space requirement that's throughout the PD that is set to remain. They had parking in kind of calibrated like a typical shared access subdivision. We've had them shift that back to the base parking requirement of the PD overall, which is a combination of 51A parking and PD parking, but it's more in line with, we're not doing a shared access subdivision, we're not doing shared access parking in the same way, but it'll still be required to be provided per the PD. We now have an internal pedestrian access requirement within the conditions, and we also added a provision for no street-facing garages. These will present as perhaps townhomes is how the development plan is structured. So we included conditions that said garages, if they exist, should be on the inside of the site, not facing McKee, Wall, or Cockrell Avenue. So the existing development plan as it was approved previously was as follows, and this is kind of in line with a shared access development that you'd see. And in this case, we're going to extend Beaumont Street from the DART right-of-way to Cockrell Avenue, and then structure units on either side of that street. In this case, so they're now a single lot development. We're not delineating lot lines on our plan anymore. They've put them into individual buildings, and they've provided an open space along the kind of center spine of the development. And then you should be able to see there's a pedestrian pathway as required by conditions from McKee through to the DART crossing, which was important because that's the easiest way to get to the Cedar station is across here and through here. So that kind of maintains that, in addition to the potential flow around the site of the 6-foot required sidewalk along the perimeter. So that's just another option, but kind of maintains it remains kind of the function of the previous development plan that did have a horizontal access through there, but now we have that here required by the provision. And moving on, this is just the plan in context. If it helps understand it a little bit better, you can see the access kind of runs or is a continuation of what would be Beaumont Street, but maintains that connection across the DART crossing because that's important to get to the station. And just a little bit of scale. They're not particularly large buildings in comparison to what's been built out there right now, but there are several of them. So it fills the site along the periphery as is required by the PD setbacks. So this PD subdistrict came with a conceptual plan. What they did is they put their internal circulation on there because it was going to be a shared access development, which made sense. You would show the public streets on there, as well as other access in a conceptual plan. But the new plan does not include that. It, again, is a conceptual plan which more shows the building envelopes or potential building envelopes as a complement to the development plan that they're pushing forward as well. But it doesn't include public streets, so those are not depicted on here. So staff recommendation is approval subject to a development plan, Exhibit 317F, conceptual plan, Exhibit 317E, street section, Exhibit 317H, and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Questions, Commissioner Young?
Yes, Mr. Pepe, we received at 5 o'clock last night a revised copy of the Cedars PD. I didn't have time to play Where's Waldo and find the changes. First of all, did that come from the applicant or from staff?
That was a collaboration between the applicant and staff.
Okay,
in
and
this
could you
case.
highlight for us the changes from what's in the docket?
Yes, I would be happy to say those. I did not have time to prepare a slide or any materials, but I would be happy to explain
okay.
them out loud, if I may. So those were in response to some suggestions we received after posting, and they were, I should say, the staff accepts them, so they were in collaboration with the applicant. So one important change was they had modified landscape provisions that initially that called for 1 site tree per 4,000 square feet. That's in keeping with the Article 10 requirement, but then the conditions gave them some ability to put street trees in the parkway if needed. There are some difficult utility situations around the site, so they asked for flexibility on that. We said, okay, as long as we're keeping similar to the Article 10 requirement, but the change from last night from the docket states that we either have the 4,000 square foot or 1 site tree per 4,000 square foot of development, or 30 minimum trees total, whichever is greater. So it's a second layer review. And the reason for that is because there's also a couple exceptions in the PD conditions in case of utility conflicts, where they can exempt trees if absolutely necessary and deemed necessary by permitting staff. But that said, even though those exceptions are built in, this new addition where it says, or a minimum of 30 trees, whichever is greater, calls for a minimum number throughout the site. It's just a second net, I've been calling it, of assurance that there will be a minimum number of trees throughout the site, and that although they might have some exception for utilities, there's still that floor of total trees throughout the site. So that's the first one. The previous version of the conditions said sidewalks must be encouraged to be continuous and level across all driveways. They are just going, or the amended change says sidewalks must be continuous and level across all driveways. You've seen that condition before. That change was made, suggested and made. They agreed since last week to a 6-foot pedestrian path. The pedestrian path I've been referring to previously was at a minimum 5 feet. Upon posting of the docket, they agreed they worked it out to do 6 feet. In our previous cycles of review, they had issues with grade, but they took another look at it, and so they've agreed to 6-foot pedestrian paths. So that has been amended in this version of the conditions. And then they stated that the other paths, which width was not spoken to in the docket version, the other paths must be 5 feet at least. But the 6-foot one is important, and that one is going to be guaranteed to be from one side of the development to another. So that's why the 6-foot was definitely, the width was solidified there. And then there are other paths throughout the development, which are mostly for internal access, but they now have a 5-foot minimum at least. And so those are the changes as they were. It wasn't too many, but they were definitely beneficial changes since the posting, and that's all of them.
Okay, thank you. Let me point out that the typographical error that I called to your attention is still present. So if
In
you
this, oh, I'm sorry. So
would-
in this,
in the new version. So if you'd correct that as it moves along, I'd appreciate it.
it will be, yeah.
Commissioner Hampton and I had some fun over the encouraging of sidewalks to be level and continuous. I think we're going to dub her the sidewalk whisperer. Thank you,
Well, that's
Mr.
good.
Chair.
Thank you for that.
Commissioner Stannard.
Yes, and I'm sure that between you and Commissioner Hampton, all my questions will be answered, but there's some things that are just weird about this to me. I just don't understand them. I understand it went from a shared access, okay, that was the plan, and then it changed, and it's not being called MF, it's being called residential. But I guess my concern is, what is this? I mean, it's 18 buildings, and you're calling them townhouses. Are they selling the lots? Or is it rentals? Do you have any idea what this is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that. There are certain things that we can be sure of in this orientation and things that are going to be left open to development. So it is not a shared access development. It is not split into several lots. So they would presumably not be selling the land underneath units in a platting sense to potential buyers or users. So you can see our development plan looks like this. My understanding is that they will present as townhomes. They'll look like, I mean, townhome isn't even a use in our code because this is going to be multifamily, technically, because it's multiple units on one lot. But my understanding is it'll look and be structured like multifamily or townhomes, I'm sorry, but there won't be individual division of lots in a platting sense underneath. And then it's up to the applicant to have them for sale or for lease.
So what you're saying is they're planning to do some sort of ground lease sale, that they're selling the house that, what? Oh, like a condo, okay.
Potentially.
Okay.
Potentially. I mean, we're not.
I got what you're saying. Okay.
Our portion of review doesn't speak to leasing, selling,
Yeah,
but
it's just, it's hard to get a feeling of kind of what was going on visually just from the plan, to say, what is this? And I guess I have two other concerns. One, because if you give 85% lot coverage, okay, and we're talking about the whole lot, right? The entire site, 85%. Mm-hmm. And you say that 15% is landscaping, correct?
yes.
15% must be landscaping.
That's right.
Then how do you get the 5% open space?
Well, open space, because open space and area or landscape area can overlap. So you'd have 15% that is landscape area, and then part of that is going to be open space.
And what are you considering there, open space?
So
That central core thing?
that's part of it. But my understanding is that drainage areas, so places where they detain water, if they're landscaped, they can be a landscape area, but they can't be an open space area. So that's one thing that might account for it. And I know that they would have some drainage area along the middle or along the northern part of the site.
Right, but normally those drainage areas, you would agree, can't be used because usually they're, because of water and wetness, they're sort of segregated as far as recreational kind of use. Is that correct?
I don't think they must be.
But more often than not, I think.
There's different ways to do it, but they're accounting for it, that they didn't ask for, when we discussed this seriously with them, that the 15% is to remain, and they're like, yes, we can meet that, we can still provide for drainage, but that's kind of the answers. They're likely going to landscape a draining area, and then that'll count towards their landscape area. Open space is not going to be able to be that drainage area.
Right.
But your 5% is probably a subset of your 15%.
Okay, because I normally think of the landscaping as the buffer areas, the trees, that's surrounding the buildings almost aesthetically. And I think of open space as sort of shared, open recreational space. And my concern here is to have 87 units and only 5% open space when you're in the middle of DART across the street, all these sort of industrial city uses around you, so that the community is there and there's only 5% open space for 87 units. There's only that one little green space in the middle. Okay, now moving on, what about the guest parking? Where is the guest parking?
So guest parking is, so they're moving to the base PD parking requirements, which for multifamily would default to base code parking requirements. So base code has a potential provision for multifamily guest parking. And you actually can see a number of spaces on this plan. I think it's a good way to provide guest parking. They're scattered throughout the site. They're not all pushed together, which, think about it, if you have guests going to individual units every now and again, it's scattered throughout the site. And you can see that on this plan. They're going to look like, but they're still required to have the base code guest parking. Oh, so there's a space. I don't know how big this is on y'all's screen, but there is a space there. There's one there. So they scatter them throughout the site. And I think that was their intention, was rather than pushing it all together as one larger parking lot, that they'd scatter them throughout. They're also building indented parking, several spots of indented parking along McKee and Cockrell.
Would you, I didn't hear that. There's also what?
There's also indented parking along
okay.
McKee and
Along
Cockrell,
the streets.
will add to that amount provided.
Okay, two other questions. On the 26, is it 26 feet? And I want to be very careful about this because what are the size of the internal streets? And when I say what is the size, please give for me, because, I'll hear from sidewalk to sidewalk, it's one thing, but I'm interested in the pavement where cars go, where cars pull up and park, and what's left over on the other side. So what is that from, I would call it curb to curb, is that correct?
Yeah.
Not sidewalk to sidewalk?
Sure, good question. I mean, what you're saying sidewalk to sidewalk is the right-of-way width, right? But the fire access requirements also talk about pavement width, and pavement width is what you're talking about, like a street, the car, the space that's allotted to the car. And so that's on here. I believe the central one is 26. So you can see that curving along here, 26, and then it exits out on a wall. And then these ones are narrower, and that was fine in accordance with fire code. So fire has reviewed it, and they were fine with the orientation. But you'll see that those other streets that are not connective to the center are a bit smaller, but I believe they're 22, and that's because
They're 22, is that what you said?
yes.
Okay. My concern about that 22, and even though they moved from being a shared access to being this sort of hybrid, I guess is what I would call it. 22, again, we're back to the same thing. People pull up their cars when they have visitors, and they pull up in front of the house. Some people might use those guest parking places, but this is 87 units in 3.6 acres. So they pull up to the house. And I've been to some of these shared access, which this sort of operates a bit like that, even though it's not being applied that way. And what happens is you are creating, even with these other internal streets, if someone parks there, not only could another car barely get by, but if a fire vehicle had to come in, and I've gone to these places, it makes it impossible to function. I'm concerned about the size of those streets. I feel like this is one of those where there's a density and not enough functional space. Now, my last question is this. Why did you cross out the garbage storage screening?
That's a great question. That was at the suggestion of Phil Irwin, and that that section talks about exceptions that this PD might receive from Article 10. Article 10 doesn't speak to the garbage screening. That's a different section of code. So Phil said, don't include that because you're not accepting them from the garbage screening section of Article 10 because that doesn't apply. That's not a thing.
But in a community, you don't think that maybe we should have garbage screening?
No, that's provided for under the regular
Okay.
code.
It will be, yes.
It's just
a
not-
different part of the code, just not in Article 10.
Not Article
Okay.
10. So we're not saying no, you get a free pass on
Great
garbage
catch.
screening, but we're saying that's not a part of Article 10, so we're not going to pretend it is.
I'm not technical to know that, so I appreciate learning this.
It was I didn't know it until he pointed it out, but it was a fine suggestion.
Okay, lastly, I understand sometimes in these shared access in these smaller houses that you have only 6 feet between the houses, okay? With a small house, that seems kind of reasonable. But when you've got these buildings of townhouses, and then between the next building, there's only 6 feet of space, I mean, that works, I mean, as far as services or anything going on, that's just the way it is.
Yes, so that, actually, in this case, I believe there would be, at least as the development plan exists, there would be more than 6 feet between the buildings, but typically it does. Building code, my understanding, like international building code also speaks to safe distances between structures for purposes of maintenance, but it's not a zoning thing.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
no
But
problem.
thank you for all those answers.
No problem.
Commissioner Housewright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to cover the same ground about guest parking, so I'll keep it brief because we just did a lot of that already. So would I understand that guest parking is subject to the 0.25 spaces per unit? Is that what we're?
From base code,
Yes. Okay. So I count less than that on the site plan, but I'm going to take that at face value that somehow I've missed some spaces. In my experience in my district with projects like this is that the residents don't keep their garages clean. They go and occupy the visitor spaces, and there's not enough visitor spaces. And so I'm sure that Ms. Hampton's constituents are better housekeepers than those in District 10, and that all these garages will be clean and used. But I just point that out that this doesn't work in my district.
The clean garage urban myth strikes again. Commissioner Hampton.
Just a few clarifications, and Mr. Pepe, thank you for the exhaustive briefing and for fielding some of our questions this week. This request is before us due to the project's comments from engineering and plating as they were moving forward with the project. Is that correct?
Yes, I understand they were pretty close to getting there, encountered those difficulties as we spoke of, especially when they got to plating, and they've come back. I don't think they wanted to, but here they are.
So, and that's what's led to the new development plan that's before us, some of the revisions to the conditions and other measures that we're talking about today. And while the lot coverage is increased in what's before us, is it correct that with the 15% requirement on the landscape area, the open space and other provisions, there's no net increase in density for this project?
No, there is not a net increase in density or from the project.
Okay.
That is some flexibility, wiggle room.
Just as they're evaluating it?
Of course.
And is it, sorry.
Oh, I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, of course, the development plan has much less lot coverage than that.
Understood. And related to that, the reason why the landscape plan is proposed to be removed here is, again, trying to provide some flexibility because of site constraints. They have utilities, they have the adjacent dart line, number of different factors, but that the text that is crafted is meant to reflect that landscape plan, but allow for Mr. Irwin, his team, as they go through to ensure compliance with Article 10, to meet or exceed, actually.
That's correct.
Okay. And then as staff has evaluated the project, I think we have maybe moved some things forward in terms of code as well as to bring it into compliance with PD 317, the Cedars PD that was recently amended, for instance, putting the parking into the base code. They have the ability to take advantage of some of the parking reductions, ride share, a number of the other provisions if they elected to do so. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes. And the reason I say for the most part is that might require a minor amendment, but as you know how that process works, because they have depicted some parking on here, but they're likely providing more than the base PD calls for. But that's their right. They can provide additional parking if they like. But yes, they someday, if they reoriented or changed up a little bit, they could provide less based on those provisions in the PD, and those obviously are vetted at a large scale and were deemed appropriate in the time they were approved. So those are there.
And understand, I mean, this project and the team has a certain approach, but obviously if things do change, they are clearly very proximate to that art station and have a lot of opportunities if they chose to take advantage of those.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just wanted to touch on one final question, because one of the other biggest changes is that the extension of Beaumont is removed from the plan, and that's what that public access sidewalk at 6 feet, that's what that's meant to essentially preserve, is that idea of the connectivity through the site within the neighborhood, even for its limited distance. But is that what that is intended to capture?
That's right. Yeah, there's only so many places in Cedars you can cross the railroad right away. So, it was identified as a priority. Make sure, there are, the vehicles can go and cross in a number of places. Pedestrians can only, get to so many places in so much time. So that was prioritized for sure. And the path is a spiritual successor to the Beaumont Street.
Thank you. And then just one final question. I don't know if you're aware that there's some activity within the community itself, that there's a new park that is planned in direct proximity to this project. I believe it's about half a mile.
No, I
aware
did
of
not.
that. Well,
That's great.
I'm delighted to share that
That's
with
great.
the body. So thank you, Mr. Pepe. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hampton. Vice Chair Rubin?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Commissioner Hampton got us most of the way there on my parking questions, but just so I understand, this is within 2,000 feet of the DART station, right? Which would make it eligible for a transit proximity bonus if certain pedestrian amenities are provided, right?
Yes, correct.
And that's all in the base of PD 317. And I guess the restriction is that if you actually look in the development plan, they commit to a specific number of spaces on site and then 2 per unit, correct?
That's correct. So they did state that on the plan. So while that number is above the text minimum, likely, because they can do various things, and that's kind of, you've identified it's a flexible PD. There's a dynamic nature of the parking down there. That said, they did put a minimum number on here, but they would require a minor amendment to reorient that towards there.
Is there any way that the applicant could have done the development plan and the table that they would have the flexibility either if they didn't want to take advantage of the bonus to provide at code without the bonus, or take advantage of the bonus today so they don't have to come back for a minor amendment?
Yes, good question. They likely could, and this goes for most PDs or development plans that you'll see throughout the city, they could put, instead of putting total parking number, development plans have to speak to parking, it's called for by their requirements, but they could say total parking provided per PD 317, and that would be in line with their text for the district. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they provide numbers on their development plans to make people more comfortable that there will be enough parking, even if it's still governed by the code.
But as of today, they could not take advantage of that bonus without coming back for a minor?
No, not without one of those.
Okay, thank
alterations.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, Commissioners? Okay, we'll keep moving. Case number 6, please. Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Ms. Munoz, good morning.
Good morning.
We are ready for case number 6.
And I'm pulling it up right now. There we go.
Thank you. It is up now. Thank you. Yes.
Fantastic. Getting everything out of my way so I can see the whole screen, and we can get started now. This is an application for a specific use permit for a child care facility on property that's currently zoned an R75A single family district. The property is undeveloped. It contains over half an acre, and they would like to develop the site with a 3,500 square foot child care facility. This property is located at the southeast corner of South Polk Street and Beckley Mead Avenue, south of I-20 and west of I-35 East. Here's an aerial map showing that property and how it is currently undeveloped. You'll note that it splits across what looks like 2 parcels. They will be subject to replat requirements. And so at this point, they're just trying to obtain the SUP, and then they are aware that it will take a minute to get the property replatted if they do comply. Here's the zoning map showing the adjacent zoning districts. So the property and then properties to the east, south, and south are all zoned in our 75A district. And to the east and south, we do have a fully developed single-family neighborhood. Across to the west, there's PD number 668. There's a DISD athletic complex and then a school that's further to the south. And to the northwest, we have undeveloped regional retail. And to the north, directly across Polk, there is a truck stop with general merchandise or food store, fueling station, and a restaurant use. So in the single family district, an SUP is required to operate a child care facility, which is why they come to you. And according to DCAD records, that again, this is 2 parcels which are combined for a total of 28,887 square feet. Historic aerials indicate the property was previously developed with a single family structure, similar to those in the vicinity in the single family neighborhood to the south and east. And it seems to have been developed from the 50s through the late 70s, but has since been vacant. So they're requesting to now redevelop this site with this childcare facility. Here are site photos. We're looking at the site from Beckley Mead. I think I misidentified that street as Polk earlier. So to the north is Beckley Mead, to the west is Polk. And we're just looking at that vacant lot here. And now the surrounding properties, the vacant property that's zoned regional retail to the northwest. Looking across Polk. So that's part of the athletic complex parking area, as you see on the aerial map. And this is just all down Polk and the surrounding single family uses. Now we're looking north across Beckley Mead to that truck stop use. And here's another single family structure that is directly across the street from that truck stop use. So here you see that vacant lot, the single family structures beside it. And this is the proposed site plan. It shows how they plan to have one-way traffic flow coming, entering from Beckley Mead, and then exiting onto Polk Street. It shows a 3,500 square foot structure. They have a fenced play area. They are required to have the residential adjacency buffer landscape area to the east and to the south due to the residential adjacency. And they are providing more parking than required by code. And they do plan to have several vehicles as noted in their TMP which was for informational purposes, that are for those vehicles for employee parking spaces, as well as the institutional vans for chauffeuring the students to and from the site. This is just an enlarged view of that site plan. And this is the informational TMP that was submitted to help our engineering division ascertain how they plan to function here. They do have proposed SUP conditions. They'd be subject to the site plan. Staff is in support of the request for a 5-year period with automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods. They'd be limited to the maximum floor area of 3,500 square feet and the hours of operation. Additionally, the ingress and egress locations as shown on the site plan. And so staff recommendation is approval for that 5 and 5, subject to the site plan and conditions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Munoz. Questions? Commissioner Young.
Yes, am I right? You mentioned that the site is actually 2 platted lots currently. Is that right?
It's 1.5.
Well, I'm not sure what 1.5 platted lots is, but there's a lot line that runs down the middle of the structure. Is that correct?
As it's currently planned.
Okay, and that's allowed because of the grandfather provision from when we used to allow Z-barring but no longer do so. Is that correct?
No, they have to replat. So it's not considered a food site at this time.
Okay, that's where I was headed, whether the additional non-residential use would trigger a replat requirement, and you're telling me that it will need replatting.
That's right.
Okay. I have some questions for transportation if they're on.
Morning, Commissioners. David Navarez, Transportation Development Services.
Good morning, Mr. Navarez. Looking at the traffic management plan, I see that they have compared the queuing length for the existing school, which has 33 children, and they've extrapolated from that a proposed queuing length or an estimated queuing length based on 70 children. And my question is this: for the 33 children site, they estimate 7 vehicles because they're including staff vehicles. And for the 70 student site, they estimate 9, which does not seem proportionate to me. Am I analyzing that right, and do you have any concerns about that?
Well, you are analyzing it correctly in that if it was a linearly proportioned or a linear relationship between the two facilities, you would essentially be doubling the amount of queuing that you are observing. I think what the engineer of record in this report says is that it's not a linear relationship, that doubling the amount of students will not double the number of students who show up all at once. That is reflective of a child care facility, and more so than a traditional school where all the students arrive at the same time.
And is
within a 15-minute period, for example.
Is that due perhaps to siblings sharing the same trip?
Sure, I would say more so related to the fact that that all the students is not the right terminology here, but all the incoming traffic does not arrive within a 15-minute period, as opposed to an elementary school, for example, where there's a bell rings and everyone needs to be in by a certain time. And whereas a child care facility is more spread out throughout a much longer period of arrival.
My concern, though, is that the analysis of the 33 children site speaks of 7 vehicles, including both parking and both parent and staff vehicles, whereas the analysis of the 70 children site says anticipated to have a maximum queue of up to 8.4 or 9 parent guardian vehicles. It looks to me like they are disregarding staff vehicles in the analysis for the proposed site.
I cannot disagree with you, Commissioner, in that the numbers just don't add up if we're doubling. I think what the applicant is explaining in their report is that it's not a linear relationship that doubles because of the number of students are doubling. Their recommendation is essentially based on special operations of a child care facility that are different than a traditional school. I should specify that this is probably the first time that we staff asked for a traffic study for a child care facility. The applicant was very surprised, and I explained why. Primarily the location, the proximity to a major intersection, and the presence of large vehicles. That essentially triggered, and being able to answer these questions to you from an objective perspective based on their evaluation. I cannot disagree with you, Commissioner Young. I do believe that doubling the number of students should certainly, if not double, significantly increase the number of vehicles that show up at the same time. The evaluation essentially says that's not the case. They don't show up all at once. A child care facility has a much longer arrival rate, and they don't, those same vehicles don't arrive within the same 5-minute period of observations, for example. So those are all my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm going to have some questions of the applicant or his traffic engineer at the hearing today.
This case is off consent. Commissioner Stannard.
It is on consent?
It's off consent?
Oh, okay, off consent. Yes, Ms. Munoz, I have 2 quick questions. One, I noticed when I was reading the application and the comments, there was something about, and I understand that we're trying to reduce too much cement parking, this surface parking, but there was something about trying to get it at 7 parking spaces, and then it was 11, and it was for the 2 vans and the 7 staff members. Well, I'm just a little concerned. This is a 14-hour day. There are obviously shifts. You might have, you know, one person about to leave, another staff coming in. You might have a parent that emergency-wise needs to come pick up their child during the day. So is this considered enough parking for 75 students and the staff that's required for that?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Stannard. So what I was trying to get to in the parking section is that the code requires 7 spaces. They are over parking at the 11, despite the number of students and despite their admission in the TMP, that they will have that many staff vehicles and vans there parking. So at minimum, 7 spaces is required, although for this use, you can determine the parking. Obviously, it's typically for less. And if you do hold them to additional parking, you can do that as well. And you can add that to the SUP conditions unless Daniel says otherwise. Did I answer your question?
Okay, thank you for that answer. Because, I guess, so where would, if a parent arrived, where would they park? I'm just curious. I don't mean just letting off their kids, but.
Fantastic question. And I would say the applicant is aware that there are several questions. If you wouldn't mind muting your microphone real quick.
Okay.
Thank you. The applicant is aware, the representative, they're going to have Pacheco and Coach here to respond to any additional questions as to the operations. All that staff can speak to, though, is the fact that code requires a minimum of 7 spaces. They've overparked the site according to what they plan to have. David has provided his professional expertise, and then Pacheco and Coach can talk about the observations and the comparison of the site with the additional student enrollment that's proposed.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz. One other question, just a quick one. Because this is at a major intersection, okay, and there's a truck stop across the street, I'm concerned, and again, I understand that code says certain things, but I get concerned about the real functionality. This is a daycare, and you've got a 4-foot fence around a playground. Is that adequate for a daycare playground?
So the playground is it's in the interior of the site. The site itself, they did propose a fence around the perimeter of the property. It is going to meet the code requirements. And so I recommended that they remove the fence from the plan to avoid any issues with future permitting or SUP amendments to their site plan. But they are going to have a fence around the perimeter of the property. It's just going to be per code. So it's not shown on the plan. The interior fencing they showed on the plan so that you would be aware that they do plan to fence that play area. So the exterior fence, especially along the northern edge that's fronting with it, where that regional retail district is and that truck stop to the north, that is considered a side yard. They'd be able to have, the 6-foot fence that they had proposed on their plan originally. It's just not shown on the plan.
Okay, now that makes sense, because I was concerned. So you're basically saying there's going to be a double fence there, the internal one around the playground and then a 6-foot one around it. Thank you so much, Ms. Munoz.
Thank you. Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Yes, Ms. Munoz, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
On page 6-4, it says the existing truck stop to the north is questionable as a compatible use, however, it is operating legally. And then it goes on to say, staff believes better management of the use of the truck stop will alleviate the questionable nature of compatibility. My question is, what is practical in the real world or possible to make the truck stop operate in such a way that it would be more compatible? Are there any steps that, first of all, what are you saying is the nature of the incompatibility? Are you talking about hours of operation, the idling, the diesel exhaust, ingress, egress, speed of the trucks? I just don't understand this part of the report.
Absolutely, all of the above of what you just mentioned, along with the fact that there seems to be an abundance of users beyond what the site can actually hold or contain within their boundaries. And that spillover is what's causing a lot of the issues with incompatibility, along with some of the other issues you mentioned. Unfortunately, staff, we have to look at it as a land use compatibility within the block that it lies. It's a residential block. So my issue is actually with the fact that that regional retail district exists to the north, abutting this low density single family neighborhood to the south. That's what I feel is causing the issue with compatibility. But overall, in this residential building block, that childcare facility to me would belong, just like it belongs in any other residential building block. And so it's really the truck stop to the north that needs to be managed better, although they're operating legally and that district maybe it has no transition. There's no transition in intensity of uses. And so it goes from low density residential to high density or intensity commercial. Because of that, that's what causes concern for this childcare facility. Otherwise, there would be no concern with having the childcare facility in a residential neighborhood.
I guess my next question is for Mr. Navarez, if he's still on. Oh, I see him. Mr. Navarez, I don't know if you heard my original question about staff believes better management of the use of the truck stop will alleviate the questionable nature of compatibility. Are there steps that staff can take, citing what Ms. Munoz was saying as things that she'd witnessed that looked like there were some questionable operations here? At this point, if the truck stop does have the zoning and the CO that it needs, are there steps that the staff can take legally to address how it's operating and what its impact is on the surrounding residential neighborhood and this possible daycare center?
Good morning, Commissioners. David Navarez, Transportation Development Services again. A public street has no parking restrictions unless signed for such restrictions, and the practical way that the Department of Transportation would take is at the request of abutting property owners and only abutting property owners. And there's actually a process where it's not just the abutting property owners, but rather the total number of property who owned property along the same block. And then there's a minimum percent that must sign the application. The Department of Transportation could go out there and restrict parking, meaning prohibit parking with traffic signs that essentially read no parking. The next step would be enforcement, which requires the city to have adequate number of personnel to visit the site as needed upon request after 311 calls are placed and issue citations. Otherwise, city staff is not aware of any. Without the 311 calls, there's no way the city can, randomly visit this specific location in the city. So those would be the only mechanism that the city of Dallas has right now in order to enforce parking or manage parking at this location.
Okay, thank you. So the only steps that staff could take would be to enforce the parking on that public street. Every other element of the truck stop that contributes to incompatibility, there really is no recourse through staff efforts.
I should also, if I may add, Chair Shadid.
Please.
There are other sections of the code that restrict large vehicle parking, and I apologize, I am not ready to answer this question, but I am aware that Chapter 28 also has restrictions for large vehicles for a certain number of time, idling, and so on. I can actually be ready during the hearing to provide you with those sections of Chapter 28 and let you know when a vehicle is in violation of code. But again, it requires someone to inform the city through a 311, which is the only mechanism available, and which we always advocate and advertise as best as possible. 311 would be the only way for city to enforce any code violations, whether it be parking or idling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rubin. Commissioner Blair, please.
Along those same lines, Mr. Navarez, I'll start with the big trucking issues along Beckley Mead. Are you aware that I have been working diligently with the council member to eradicate some of the illegal parking along Beckley Mead?
Yes, ma'am. I am aware that there are many issues in the area, in this district, related to both illegal and undesired and unsafe truck parking conditions.
Are you aware that all the no parking signs that are in close proximity along the same street on Beckley Mead are newly replaced from where the truckers have run them down over the last year?
Based on my observations online, I can tell you, I agree that the signs are not old or faded, but rather clear. And I can't tell you exactly the date, though I could find out for you, but I can tell that those signs are not old or faded, and they're clear and in good conditions.
No, I can
parking
tell
restrictions that you're referring to.
I can share with you that they're not even a year old. Are you aware that I went through 311 through the councilman's office in order to replace them because there were numerous no parking signs that were just laying flat on the ground with trucks parked on them?
I'm aware that staff has been working in this area to replace parking, and I believe that this is an exact location where those requests were recently.
Are you aware that the house that is, the residential use that is abutting the proposed development actually puts cones out in front of their lot to keep truckers from parking there?
I was just made aware of that yesterday, ma'am, from photos provided to the commission.
Are you further aware that the house where the residential use that is next to that has painted on their gate, private property, no parking?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Are you aware that the trucks that I don't know when the pictures that were presented for review were taken, but are you aware that that Interstate 20 is in close proximity to this site, and Polk is in Beckley Mead, Daniel Dale to DeSoto is a major thoroughfare for trucks to enter and exit the city?
I agree with those statements, ma'am. Yes. I am aware of that.
Okay, so can you explain from a safety perspective, the agreement or the belief that this is an appropriate use considering the entrenched truck use that is surrounding not only this piece of land, but this general vicinity?
I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you repeat the question? I heard you clearly. Just want to make sure I address it.
I said, can you help us understand the belief that this is appropriate use considering that the TMP requires that all parents come in on Beckley Mead and exit on Polk, with the current truck use on these streets, that this is not a safety, not only safety, but mostly a safety issue. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be brief, and I'll try not to overstep boundaries through the land use rationale, but specifically related to the operations of this proposed land use. As I stated before, this is probably, as far as I know, and I might be incorrect, this is the first time that we, city staff, asked for a traffic study of a child care facility. I'm aware the applicant was very surprised, and so were my colleagues. And the reason was because of our understanding of the amount of truck traffic that operates in this neighborhood and on this road, and also obviously the proximity to such a large intersection where trucks are the king and they rule the road. These roads are designed for truck traffic. That is why we would not have been able to provide you a recommendation today without an evaluation of their traffic operations. As far as safety and operations themselves, I do believe that as stated in the traffic management plan, a very active management of their operations would successfully accommodate passenger cars in and out of this facility. It's a very small facility. It's a very small lot, but it would take a very active operation from the operator at this site, making sure that their driveway is open at all times and not obstructed by trucks. The earlier part of your question regarding the location of this site related to land use, I think I defer this to my colleagues and Jennifer. We did see it as an opportunity to, we want this site developed. And so how do we want it developed? Do we want it developed with homes? Do we want it developed with commercial property, with another warehouse, not warehouse, excuse me, but an industrial, semi-industrial use, which, we don't have the space, but certainly could be designed. That's how we arrived at our recommendation. But all your comments are very valid, and we appreciate you taking us city staff into account as well, in that we're the ones left to handle the operations and perhaps even mistakes of oversight in our review at permitting. So I hope that answers the question, which is a little bit overstepping boundaries with the land use rationale.
Okay, I'll leave you alone for a moment. Ms. Munoz, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Commissioner Blair. I'm well. I hope you are too.
Oh, yes. Can you share the concerns I expressed to you let me put it a different way. Let's talk about idling trucks and environmental safety concerns with newborns and children directly across the street. And I'm not going to belabor all this, because I think that you did a yeoman's job of taking this case on at the last minute. And I do truly appreciate your time that you've spent with me trying to get to an appreciation of what you're trying to accomplish, or what you were trying to accomplish, and what I need to have the rest of the commissioners appreciate. So let me first start off with saying thank you. I hope you do appreciate that. But can you share my concern that I shared with you in our meeting last week about the environmental safety concerns with idling trucks right across the street from a daycare?
Certainly, a few items you mentioned were, of course, the air quality or the effect on health of the children who are developing. Other issues, of course, the fact that there are so many trucks there coming in and out, the safety concern with that as well. Any other part that I'm leaving out?
No, you're good. You're good. Can I talk to you, or can I ask you a question, please, in regards to leaving the gates open throughout the day? Does that not bring concern with the transient nature of a truck stop directly across the street from this location?
I do think that they will be required for their licensing requirements to secure their site in some way. But since I don't manage the license for daycare facilities, that might be a better question for the applicant and how they plan to manage the site.
Okay. David, thank you very much, Ms. Munoz. I really do appreciate your time on this. David, Mr. Navarez, may I ask you one more question when it comes down to parking? We are seeing that this is 11 spots that are going to be available, 7 of which, and help me understand, 7 of which will be for employees, 2 of which will be for their van use, and which, by my math, that leaves 2 spaces. I do believe I'm counting correctly. That leaves 2 spaces for all other use. What happens if we have deliveries, service people, or any of that nature that is there at the same time? Does that not concern you that that leaves no parking available for any long-term parent coming in to administer to their children? And if that does occur, where will they park, especially since there's no parking on Beckley Mead? Would they run over to Love's and park there?
Well, first of all, ma'am, my comments are strictly based on the study that was presented to us. My only comment, an overarching comment on this matter is it would just require a very active management from the operator to make this project a success, where the city never gets to see them again in terms of helping them with their own business. It would take active management, not only with signs and helping parents understand what they are supposed to do during the drop-off and pickup, but also deliveries, making sure that their deliveries are scheduled accordingly, not when other parents are present. Also, it might even take some, and I'm speaking out of line here because that's not what the report says, but in my opinion, it could even require some sort of agreement with nearby properties where perhaps even employees would have to park remotely if that was the case. However, that's not what the report says. The report says that there's adequate space for all their employees, the services, and parents who may be visiting or dropping off and have a hard time. It's not students, but rather children, I guess. I'm trying to stay away from the word children, but it's a very active management plan, and the only way how this can be a success, full operation.
I'm sorry, but you brought up something very interesting, that there would need to be an agreement where parents could park off-site to access this site. There is.
I didn't say parents, ma'am.
Or anyone to park. Anyone would need to could conceivably park, whether it be parents, whether it be employees, whomever. Is there a light at the corner of Beckley Mead and Polk for ease of access of crossing?
To clarify, I hypothetically said that potentially there could be an opportunity where employees could park. If you look just east of this property, and I'm speaking hypothetically, in the event that this project moves forward, that would be an option where the city could explore and seeing a solution if this became a problem, where staff could be potentially parking in this ocean of parking if you just look east of the site across Polk. No, ma'am, there's no traffic signal at this location. And at your request, I can look up to see if we have studied it for it to be one at one point as of today. I can find out but as of today, there is no traffic signal. There is a crosswalk without enhanced signs, which could also become an opportunity for the operator to enhance and provide. And that's hypothetically speaking, because I introduced the having a remote parking agreement with the property. I'm sorry, actually, I brought it up.
Well, you opened it, and I'm going to walk through it. So the directly east on Polk, whether it's northeast or west, excuse me, directly west on Polk, and whether it's northwest or southwest. Northwest is a vacant lot that has nothing there but zone regional retail. And southwest is a athletic location that, are you aware of that location? That athletic location is intensely used for graduations, all seniors of the southern area graduate through that location. It's intensely used when COVID testing and COVID shots were given, and it's owned by DISD. And have you ever known DISD to open up a joint venture to allow residents, or I should say, that type of use on their property?
Our office reviews, and so I sign off all remote parking agreements, and I'm in 5.5 years with the city, I've never seen a remote parking agreement with the ISD property.
Thank you.
Any other, Vice Chair Rubin?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the scope of staff's review here. You know, these daycares are extensively regulated by the state. Has staff reviewed any of the state regulations or licensing requirement in determining its recommendation on this application?
No, sir.
Okay, that would be the purview of the state, right? Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Housewright.
Ms. Munoz, has there been any discussion with the applicant about redesigning the site plan to better respond to the urban condition of this corner?
Not necessarily, no. We talked about just ensuring that they met the minimum standards of the development code.
Would you share my observation that the land use of a child care center may not be the issue as much as the traffic, the safety, the adjacent uses, and that an appropriate site plan might go a long way towards making this more palatable?
I share every opinion you just said, except I'm not exactly sure how redesigning this small site could assist with the effect of the adjacent sites to the north onto this property.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, well, we're a little bit behind, commissioners. Let's take our first break. Let's make it a quick 5-minute break at 10:41 a.m. Be back in 5 minutes. Yes, we are. Commissioners, we're moving on to case number 7, Z212271. Ms. Algair, good morning.
Good morning. It feels kind of like it's 2 o'clock in the next morning to me right now, but just FYI for everyone, David Navarez has had to step away for the next hour or so. He just called me to remind me that he's not going to be here during this one that has lots of boxes for traffic issues. So, but he will be here for the hearing.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so.
Just FYI, this case is probably going to be held under advisement, so we'll get another chance to speak to David.
Okay, I am briefing though, or no?
Yes, we are going to brief it, yes.
Okay. Whoops, wrong one. Okay. Okay, good morning. This is Z212271. It is an application for a specific use permit for a public school other than an open enrollment charter school on property zoned an R5A single family district on the northeast corner of Linfield Road and Bonneview Road, approximately 10.19 acres. It's located in District 4. Aerial map, the property shares a block with a public park and some additional property in R5A that does have some single-family homes developed on them, and then some undeveloped property in the CR district, and a church that is also in the CR district. To the northeast, along that boundary of the site, there's an abandoned right-of-way that is now basically power lines and a couple of cell towers. The request site is, like I said, zoned R5A. There's an existing elementary school that's not being used this year. I think at the end of last year, they decided they were not. So it's not being used. It is currently called W.W. Bushman Elementary School, but it will be renamed A.C. Black. The existing school has been in operation since the mid-1950s, and the property does have an approved preliminary plat that will be relied upon for building site purposes at permitting. The original application was a request for a new planned development district. However, the applicant amended the application to a request for a new SUP. And the analysis that we received from the applicant for this particular school is shown on the screen. Basically, there were some issues with 6-foot fence in the front yard. You're kind of going to see a theme. I feel like every school kind of comes in with certain themes. There are issues that we need to address with them and help them get addressed through the code. But 6-foot fence in the front yard, which they indicated could be lowered to 4 feet at this location without any issue. There was some parking in the front yard setback at this location initially, but they indicated that they were very overparked and could reduce that so that the site could comply with the parking setback. And then they had a concern about the timing of landscape on several of their schools, and this was addressed through the code. There's a couple of options that will allow them to delay that. Development standards, this chart is in the case report as well, but essentially just showing again the standard requirements for an R5A district, and then specifically for this particular R5A lot with this particular use school, which is an institutional use. Really, the only difference here, I think, is with respect to height and lot coverage. And these are things that are basically allowed in the base code. So there are special provisions for the height of schools. When we're, I think I said at the last briefing, when we're in one of the low-density residential districts, like an R district, a TH district, a duplex district, they can basically build to any height that airplanes can fly over, FAA. And then they get additional coverage. This property does have 2 front yards that will both have that 20-foot setback. And then this is looking at the existing main entry from Bonnie View. And then the existing, basically the, I guess, back of house service drive. To the left in this photo is where those R5A lots are developed with single-family homes. And then we're just going to work our way around the property. Excuse me. Making sure that we show conditions of sidewalk, tree locations, things like that that have come up in conversations with the applicant. And then, again, the far right edge of the front of the school on Bonnie View. Looking back to that drive, circular drive for drop-off and pickup currently. And then we get to, I'm sorry, I've not had a very good voice for a few days, so I'm trying not to lose it again. Existing parking, and making our way around the corner to Linfield, where we start to see the side of the school, and then the play area. And then, again, the far extreme edge of the school on Linfield to the right in this photograph is where we'll start to see the adjacent park. Also showing, like I said, conditions of existing sidewalks. Surrounding uses, this is going back to the original starting point. There's a single-family home immediately adjacent to that service drive on Bonneview. Looking away from the site along Bonneview, there are a couple of churches in that CR area, some undeveloped property, and working our way around across Bonneview is where we see the fire station. I think it's number 38. Well, since there's a 38 on the wall in that picture, I think I can be pretty confident of that, so, okay. And then working our way down Bonneview, single-family homes immediately across. Bus stops near the corner of Linfield and Bonneview. And then we get around the corner to Linfield where we start to see some undeveloped property that's in the R75A district, and a couple of single-family homes developed on those lots as well. And then the adjacent public park. Proposed SUP site plan. The copy of this, there's a large copy of this, it's probably easier to see linked in the docket, but I don't think we need to right now. I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions for me about what's in the boxes, so I'll just refer you to the boxes are there. There are several comments, both from traffic with respect to the traffic management plan, and then from staff in terms of the actual site plan review. There are some things about the proposal that are currently not approvable if we would take it over to permitting, but they're minor enough things that are fixable. I don't want to say minor, but they're fixable things. It wouldn't take a great deal of adjustment to fix these things and get it ready to be approvable at permitting. So we felt like we could go ahead and bring it to you on time. So I know they're trying to work through several schools. So preliminary traffic management plan. And staff recommendation is approval subject to a revised site plan, a revised traffic management plan, and conditions. Staff and applicant are in agreement on all conditions for the SUP.
Thank you. Commissioner Young.
Yes, I want to explore the lack of a height limit for institutional uses and its interaction with the residential proximity slope. I'm looking at 4.408A1, which says structures for utility and public service uses and institutional uses may be erected to any height consistent with blah, 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 residential proximity slope height restrictions. And then it has an exception. No portion of a structure that exceeds the maximum structure height specified in the district regulations may be located above a residential proximity slope. So this is an R5A district and has a height limit of 30 feet. Is it staff's position that there is simply no height limitation whatsoever for a school on this property, or that the height that the RPS would kick in above 30 feet?
If a school or anything developed in a single-family district, for example, essentially you have to read that in conjunction with the district regulations for, say, for R5A, and RPS is not listed as a height limiting factor in that zoning district. So we'll just keep it to R5A because that's what we're dealing with. So it's not listed in the use regulations, in the district regulations for R5A as a height limiting factor. It doesn't apply to lots in, I'm getting there, I promise. It doesn't apply to lots in R5A. This is what we talked about last time with we need to be careful with the way that any code amendment gets worded, because the way that it's worded in 408 is that it needs to be consistent with the RPS regulations. And it is consistent with RPS regulations that it doesn't apply in R5A.
That's 408A1 says consistent with residential proximity slope height restrictions. And I understand that there simply are no such in R5A, but I'm looking at A1A. No portion of a structure that exceeds the maximum structure height may be located above an RPS. It doesn't refer to RPS restrictions or regulations.
So
and it references 4.412, which doesn't contain any specification of which districts it applies in.
So it also has to do with, it's not just the wording of it, but it also has to do with the position of, like, where it's physically located in the code. So I'm trying to pull it up real quick so I can accurately address your question.
Okay, so you want me to hang on?
Yeah, can you hang on just a second?
I can do that.
Okay. And I will not be able to find the correct page today because I'm standing in front of
Well,
an
I
audience,
constantly
right?
have problems navigating the development code.
I can't imagine. It's just so straightforward and
Yeah,
user-friendly.
and short.
Yes. Okay, see, and I went to the wrong place already. Okay, so you were referring to A1?
A1A.
Okay, no, okay, so special height provisions, A1A, obviously A is under 1, which the whole topic of that paragraph, that subparagraph, is that we have to be consistent with the these three items: the building code, federal or FAA airspace limitations, and RPS height restrictions.
But A1A is an exception to A1. Okay, so
It is staff's position that it does not apply from lot to lot in R5A, and that yes, unless we limit it to through an SUP or through a code amendment or through something that we're working towards, if we don't put something in the code that would cause RPS to apply in this location, it is staff's position based on development services determination, pretty long-standing.
all right, so, okay, and I won't debate the linguistic question any further, but would it be appropriate then, in an appropriate case, when we are authorizing an institutional use in residential by SUP, to include either a height restriction or an equivalent of an RPS restriction or both? Not necessarily this case, but
Right.
in general.
Right, if there was a concern with a school being built above a certain height. So if there, so there's not going to be anything said in this particular zoning case. There's nothing referencing what height they're going to build to. So if you have a concern about that,
Well,
we would need to put that in as a condition, yes.
I'm less concerned about that in this case because it's an elementary school, and my understanding is they are by state law limited to 2 stories. more so a high school, and we can cross that bridge when we come to it.
Right.
To your knowledge, if the RPS applied to this site, would any portion of the structure violate it?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, my concern is about I think it's the northwest corner that adjoins single family.
The northwest corner that adjoins single family.
I think it's the northwest corner. Let me.
Okay, well, I think in this case, there's nothing, staff doesn't have any definitive information about the intent of height at this particular location, so
Okay.
it would be something that we should ask the applicants.
Right.
Perhaps, but then again, it's not anything that we could hold them to unless there was a condition placed in the SUP.
Okay, but you'd agree in an appropriate case, a property or a proposal could meet the four-part SUP criteria if height limited, but violate it if not height limited, and that would be an appropriate case to include a height limitation.
Violated if not
Well,
height limited?
I said, well, to grant an SUP, we have to determine that the four-part criteria are met. You can conceive, can you not, of a case where they would be met if the use were height limited, but would not be met if the use were not height limited?
I can conceive of a case where that might happen, but I do not believe that this is one of those.
I'm not sure I do either.
Right, so, but yes, I can conceive of a situation where the commission might find it necessary or desirable to put a height limitation at a location as a condition of an SUP.
We could go on about this for another hour, but I think I'll stop.
I love code talk. Let's keep going.
I think we're going to have that discussion pretty soon, Commissioner Young. Ms. Ungary, I have a question for you. This is on 7.3 of the staff report. Let me just.
Would you repeat that?
7.3. Staff finds that the current proposal does not sufficiently support pedestrian access to, from the site, or circulation within the site to building entries. Staff notes that, as currently proposed, the design does not discourage access to pedestrians, but will create unsafe conditions for students. However, with the recommended changes, transportation staff supports the request, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Those are some pretty heavy words for this body to consider, unsafe conditions for students. So I'm hoping you can outline here, what are the recommended changes here?
So this is precisely why I was hoping that David Navarez could be here, because all of this was based on conversations that we'd had with him. And essentially, the recommendation is based on the TMP language itself and the plan in the actual plan organization of the TMP. There's nothing specifically, limiting where pedestrians can load and unload. I mean, there's not any specific direction on that. So they're not discouraged in that language from hopping out of the car or into the car anywhere along that circuitous route. So the recommendation is to add paved pedestrian paths. It doesn't have to meet the same criteria in terms of width and whatnot as a public sidewalk, but something to get them safely to and from any point of access to the site to the building entries. It didn't necessarily have to follow the circuitous path, but there needs to be something because essentially, and I think part of this is a result of the applicant wisely trying to pare down any unnecessary information in the SUP site plan so that things that are already covered under base code don't really need to be shown on the site plan won't end up tripping them up when they get to permitting and make them do the ping pong back and forth. But I think they went too far and took too much information off. And it can easily be added back in. I don't think it's their intent that there's no walking pathway from the public right-of-way to the entries. And I think they'll address that this evening. Not sure how long we're going to be here.
We're going to order pizza.
Yes.
So at some point, I guess the applicant or staff will outline these recommended changes, and I know that it's in the staff report, but I guess my question to you is for such a sentence to make it to the staff report, there's, I think, maybe a disconnect here. We're talking about a school and children and students, and that's kind of concerning, frankly.
I definitely understand that. It was included in the staff report to make sure that the point was made. Obviously, it caught everyone's attention. It's a function of just some back and forth between applicant and staff that isn't at a completion point yet, and just we still have some working out of things to do. So we needed to make the point that there are, in staff's opinion, unsafe conditions currently proposed, and that we need to make sure that if we are going to keep this moving forward, that we get those addressed, because there are some concerns with the current proposal.
Okay. And one last thing, and I promise this is the last piece on this. You just kind of opened the door there a little bit. For this to make it to our docket, all of staff's concerns were addressed through the process? They were not?
No. So it is actually not necessarily a requirement that all of staff's concerns be addressed before it gets onto the agenda. A case can keep moving forward. If the applicant wishes it to move forward and says, no, I'll explain it, I can take care of that in front of the commission, it's, easily, whatever. If they want it to move forward, it can move forward, and we will oblige them on that. I know that DISD is very, like other schools, they're very concerned about making sure that things keep moving. So this is an example, though, of a case that's here on time, and we actually tried to get it on early at last CPC agenda, but we hadn't quite gotten stuff in time for notification. So we're trying to move things through, but sometimes when things stay on time, this is what you can see. So there's lots of boxes to still be worked out.
Yes.
If there was anything so major that it was going to involve a major redesign, we would have not put it on the agenda. I don't think that there's anything that's going to involve such a major redesign that it can't be taken care of via the boxes. So we were okay bringing it, and I will just wait for you all to voice your approval or not.
Fair enough. Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes, Ms. Algar, what is the rationale for a permanent SUP? I know last time we went round and round with 20 and 20 and landed on 15 after an hour's discussion. So why are we fighting the same territory here?
Thank you. That is an excellent question. Staff would have come with supporting the applicant's request for permanent SUP last time, but we still had some internal conversations that needed to be had with our colleagues in some other divisions. And so it was released for this time. So moving forward, if this is what the applicant is requesting, and I mean, I'll just leave it at that. That's where we're headed, but it's not, again, I'm just going to repeat what I said last time. There's lots of stuff in the code that still needs to be worked out, and there's lots of processes that still need to be worked out. Staff has a lot of work still to do, but I guess this is the first of many changes that are coming with the development code and the way that we address things as a city through our development code and with, in coordination with other departments. And we are pushing this to maybe a point of discomfort. I apologize for that part, but this is where we're headed, but we're not just pushing it and then not doing any legwork behind the scenes to support it. So
is it the intention of staff to bring a code amendment to ZOAC to look at schools?
We certainly would not do an end around ZOAC. I mean, all of the talk that has come up with schools just happens to be coming up because of the fact that DISD has a bond program right now, and they've brought 25 schools in the last 10 months or so. So we have this influx of schools. They requested some assistance from the various departments, having a single point of contact to get better coordination. And then when you have one staff member look at 25 cases, you start to see things that can be addressed or maybe need to be addressed. But if a code amendment is what comes out of this, it would have to go through ZOAC. I mean, we're not trying to avoid that. It just happened to come up organically because of the cases that we're in.
Can you explain to me what's a new thing that's cropped up here is the idea of an institutional, a general zoning change with an institutional overlay? Because I went back after institutional overlay was brought up last time and read the code, and it seems so vague to me that I couldn't, I mean, it would have to be materially fleshed out to have much applicability. I think it addresses parkings, but is there some mechanism? Is that something, once again, that may go to ZOAC to look at this whole applicability of institutional overlay? I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot, but this is where these issues are coming up.
I can talk about schools all day long. I love it. It's fine. But I would just say that I apologize that I was a little bit late to the briefing this morning. The briefing about schools was supposed to be first, and so I lagged behind that, and so some of that information is coming. But I will tell you, it probably isn't going to, I mean, this has sort of created a lot of interest because it's, I think, creating a lot of stress about what are we doing here. I just want to remind everyone, it's not really moving as fast as it feels like it's moving. There's a lot of steps that are going to be in the process. So the briefing that will happen in a little bit is just a first conversation, and it's just to lay out some, kind of give some context to how schools work through our development code and in our city right now, how we approach things. It's not going to probably go to the level of detail that you're wanting it to because we don't know how the institutional overlay is going to end up. It might be that it needs to be completely amended. It might be that it needs to be gone. We don't know where we're going yet, right? But it's possible.
Well, the problem for us is that we have to decide on these cases now.
But we're not proposing anything as an institutional overlay at this point.
Right.
I think at this point, and I guess I'm getting into a little bit of the briefing thing, but the issue with SUP versus PD is that, like an institutional overlay, an SUP doesn't actually change the zoning of the property. So you're still bound to the development code for that particular zoning district. And then any code amendments that would come after this massive code rewrite and reworking that's about to happen, if we keep tying things up in PDs that don't really need to be a PD, none of that code amendment is going to benefit them or affect them in any way. So we're trying to keep it tied to the base code and make it workable until we can figure out what the best path forward is for them.
Right. I understand that, but given, SUP to me implies that there are, the base code requires an SUP for these schools, and that implies that there are conditions that have to be applied to the school for it to operate effectively. And the whole idea, and that conditions can change over time. So the idea of permanent SUP is troubling to me, although I realize with the TMPs and all the vagaries that happen there, we're going to be seeing some of these schools on a regular basis. Right. And that leads to my next question about the wording of these conditions affecting TMPs in the SUP conditions here. Says the City Plan Commission shall authorize changes in a traffic management plan if the amendments improve queuing or traffic circulation, eliminate traffic hazards, or decrease traffic congestion. And right now we're being asked to approve a TMP that the staff report admits is hazardous to the students. So we're being asked to do something that, is not, that's not the final amended TMP. My reading of these conditions would seem to indicate that as soon as an acceptable traffic management plan is submitted that does eliminate these hazards, it's going to be coming right back to us. So, because we don't have the actual amended TMP in hand, we're being asked to approve a TMP that has problems. So, what am I misreading here?
I'm sorry, can I step in? So I think what we're saying is, I have two things I wanted to follow up, but to answer this question, I think what we're saying is You can always make a motion to approve per staff, and therefore the TMP can be changed to address all staff comments if you're comfortable. So we're in this situation. It always happens. We always have boxes in PDs and stuff like that. And it can happen to make a motion to say change the site plan per the following. So we can always take the route, or we can pause with the applicant and allow them to address the staff comments, but we don't know where. I wanted to chime in a little bit on the permanent SUP. I'm sorry. There are 2 points that I would like to make, and Jennifer made one of them. An SUP, as opposed to a PD, is a tool that allows us to do a code amendment, and then everything that's in the code is going to apply to that SUP. SUPs come with site plans, so any kind of changes to the site plan, to the conditions, even if it's permanent, it brings it back here. So that time frame is just telling that the school can continue to operate at that location. We used to do permanent SUPs for type of institution or public service type of uses, for police stations, fire stations, just because we acknowledge that it's a difference in an SUP where you just come and occupy a unit with the use that's temporary, and it's a different type of SUP for a building that's going to be built for that use, like a school. So it's not, we're not trying to bypass the process. We just want to give the school a certainty that they can operate at that location, but it's based on the site plan and the conditions, and it's still tying to a public process, saying if you want to change, if you want to enlarge, if you still have to come back to us. I remember I've done few other ISDs in the city that do have SUPs from the past, and they were like 20 years or 30 years, and we passed them with a 20-year and 20 auto renewals, and they came back just because they wanted to change the landscape plan or the. So I think it comes back to, do we want a PD or an SUP? And we would prefer the SUP because we want to address it by code. And we want to make sure that the standards are transparent, are set for every school in the city, and everybody knows to follow those standards. So therefore, let's address it that way. And the SUP is the type of tool that allows us to do that.
All right, thank you. I have one other question, and that has to do with the statement in the report that says, addresses that institutional uses in these R neighborhoods can be up to any height approved by the FAA, and that development on a lot within an R neighborhood doesn't trigger residential proximity. So is that, I mean, we have a long list of institutional and community service uses that are allowed in R neighborhoods. So does that mean that going forward, things like, you know, adult daycare centers, child cares, churches, I mean, all of these different uses could also now be any, I mean, would be interpreted to be, they could be any height without any residential proximity slope?
That's correct.
That, I again want to chime in. That was always the situation. This is not a change in interpretation. We always operated under this assumption. Churches can go up to any height, but when uses come to us for an SUP like this one, we show the height on the exhibit. So the same, like they have an exhibit, it says that it's going to be this height, it goes at permitting, and it goes by that height.
This particular SUP has no height on it.
I noticed that. We can add it.
All right. And as far as this always being the policy, that's not, I mean, it hasn't been the policy as I understood it. It seemed to me that we're always using the maximum height as the, you know, whatever the base height was in the district as being where we started to look. I think neighborhoods are going to be very surprised to find out all of a sudden they can have, you know, FAA approved building next to them. I can't see this flying permanently as once neighborhoods learn this is a policy, but okay, appreciate the explanation.
In any PDs or SUPs for schools or institutional that I, for instance, have done, I always took care to put the height on the exhibit just to address that. Or sometimes it's put in the conditions, but I don't think all PDs for all schools have a height limit.
But I can remember some very controversial recent cases with, like, say, tornado destruction, where the replacement schools were very controversial because of, you know, height and massing, that sort of thing. Thank you. That's all.
But those restrictions could be added in.
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
I would also say that it may be customary practice to show the height of the buildings, expected height of the buildings on the site plan. it's not actually required per the SUP code, but so we leave it off. This is again one of those things where part of this is trying to prevent the back and forth. So if you get a site plan for an SUP and you really think in this case we need to have the max height shown, then you can always make it part of the motion to say, show the max height. And we'll gladly oblige you on that.
Commissioner Stannard.
Yes. Going to that, and we've discussed this, about a lot of this. You know, I've just attended a lot of DISD public meetings, okay? And this is imperative, would you not agree, for the public to have input in what their new schools look like, how high they're going to be, what's going on, that the public, it's their taxpayer money, they're paying for the public school, and they have a right to have input. Would you agree?
I don't disagree. I'm not sure that
Well,
it has to be here. I mean, I would hope that any school going into a neighborhood would have those communications. I mean, that would be
Yes.
ideal.
Okay, agreed. And my understanding was from our last meeting that we were trying to use SUPs instead of PDs in order to pare down and we were trying to create a sort of uniform basis to be able to move schools through this planning system, correct? This is just, I'm just asking you a
bit.
question.
I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, yes, but like we said earlier, the SUP is not the end result. I mean, the SUP
No, I
is
don't
just-
mean it's the end of
Yeah.
all, but right now, it
Yes.
was better than the PD
Yes, ma'am.
process. Okay. Given that, I just feel like there needs to be some way. Right now, there are 18 DISD schools that are waiting in the hopper, some since last February. Okay. Inflation is bringing up higher costs, there are delays. I have gotten over 8 calls from Brent, as you know. I've called you about it. I've talked to Brent over and over, and he wants to, not this Brent, the head of construction for DISD. I think it's Jones, Brent Jones. What's his last name? I'm sorry, I can't remember. But at any rate, he calls me all the time, and he has real concerns of why it is taking so long. And I'm not questioning that because you and I have discussed that. But I guess what I am saying is, in my opinion, we have got to get, if we're going to use SUPs, and I don't like the idea, quite frankly, that we have a document that does not say, I mean, if I'm doing it for private schools, why aren't I doing it for DISD? When I do private schools, I've got to show the height of every building. You know, the neighbors care about that height. They don't want something towering over them. I don't think that should be an open issue. You said in your thing, and tell me if this isn't correct.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I think that we've sort of gotten off topic.
We are, if we could just please stick to this zoning case, and we are going to have that
Okay.
briefing maybe today if we have time.
Okay, but you said, this isn't on topic. Benches, trash cans, pedestrians, lighting are recommended but not required by code. But can't we in an SUP say, okay, at every school, there's got to be benches, there's got to be lighting, there's got to be all of this?
Yes, you can
So
absolutely
that
say
we don't leave that open and not in the document that's requiring the SUP?
Well, in some ways, that's why it's in there, to let you know, these things are recommended, but there really isn't, there's not, I can't require it of them right now.
So then
but
you're requiring in our motion that we include it, is that correct?
If this body feels like those things need to be added, that is, again, something that can be added as a
Okay.
condition.
Lastly, I did, after the last meeting, I wrote something to you and to Ms. Udrea about the following. That one of my concerns, and I tried to deal with it at the last meeting on the 20 and 20, and we spent an hour on the 15. So what I wrote was about this. Is there any way using the traffic management plans, okay, and I wrote you and Dr. Udrea about this, that we can say, if we're going to give these perpetual SUPs, that we can say, okay, every 6 to 8 years, you have to have a public hearing to see if you are, in fact, and get public input following the TMPs, so that we have some public accountability. This is just a mechanism, that we have some public accountability during a perpetual SUP where no one ever has to come back.
I don't know that that's something that it's not something that I think is enforceable, so I would just defer to the CAO in terms of if we can add something like that.
Yeah, Commissioner, I would not know how that would be enforced.
Basically, the public hearings are here for a request, right? So we have to put a request to say, like something that will trigger the public hearing.
So there's no way, and this is also to the city attorney, there's no way in conjunction with the traffic management plan that you could say as a requirement in a school SUP, you must have a community meeting, a publicly advertised community meeting where the public gets to give input to the TMP.
Absent a time limit, assuming that the SUP has no expiration date, I cannot think of a way to do that.
Well, okay.
So I think also this is kind of getting a little bit into some briefing items too.
Yeah, I'll save that for the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, Commissioners, before we move on? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Aguirre. Commissioners, that takes us to case number 8. Back to Ms. Munoz.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Shadid. We'll go ahead and move on to case 8Z212274. This is an application for a multifamily district on property that's currently zoned PD number 546, located on the east line of Noel Road, north of Spring Valley Road, and it's just over 5.5 acres. The applicant would like to rezone the site to general zoning to take advantage of our development bonuses that are offered for providing affordable housing. And there's the location map identifying the subject site. And the aerial map showing the property is currently developed. There is a church on this property. And then the adjacent uses and zoning districts. To the north, we do have a multifamily district adjacent to the site that's developed with multifamily use. And then to the east, another multifamily district with multifamily that's located across Montfort Drive. But there's also a church adjacent to the site within the same tract. And to the south, we have the retail, personal service, office, financial institution, restaurant, and multifamily uses all located to the south. And then to the west, we have PD 858 and an MC multiple commercial district with deed restrictions. And there we have multifamily uses and a hotel use located there to the west. So this PD was established back in 1999. The request encompasses the entire site. The PD was for MF1 district uses, but it permitted the SAH district development standards. And so now they're just going to uncomplicate the site and rezone it to general zone category, which was the original base district of MF1A. There are no changes to those permitted land uses because it is remaining under the MF1A district use categories. And so they can just take advantage of those additional development bonuses permitted with mixed income housing. And here's a photo of the site from Noel Road, looking east onto the property. You can see the existing church use on the property, and then there's surface parking as well. And this grassy area that's to the east of the site. Now, here are the surrounding land uses. This is multifamily located across Noel Road. Additional multifamily to the north. And here is a look at those development standards, and this chart is also, of course, in your case report. It shows the existing standards with the consideration given to the SAH development standards, and then the proposed multifamily district, just the base code standard. And then if they were to provide mixed income housing at certain income bands, what those development bonuses would be, since this is a category E. As you can see here, the majority of the regulations are exactly the same, except for when they move from the SAH district to the MF1A, then there are some density standards that have changed. But as far as setbacks, height, and lot coverage, it's all the same. Now, if they were to do the mixed income housing, the development bonuses we could see is an increase in height and in lot coverage overall. And then, of course, there are also other items that they permitted, like a reduction in parking. Staff recommendation is approval of this request.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter.
I have one question, Ms. Munoz. So the chart that talks about development bonuses, it says there's no increase in density for any of the levels, either any of the tiers, either 5%, 10%, or the 10% with multiple bands. Is that correct? I mean, the height goes up, but there's no density increase with those bonuses in category E?
So it's not exactly explained, I guess I should say. It's not a direct increase in density, but with the added height and lot coverage and no requirements for the minimum lot standards per unit, that's what gives them the increase in dwelling unit density overall.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rubin.
Just a quick follow-up, Ms. Munoz. If I recall correctly, MF1 does not have a max unit density, right? It's the other yard lot space regulations that serve to cap density, right?
Yes, there's no dwelling unit density. It's just a minimum lot size requirement per bedroom. So as we increase the number of bedrooms or dwelling units on the site size would have to change.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Munoz. Case number 9.
I know you've received a lot of communication about this request. Please make sure you've had the opportunity to see all the recent emails that have gone through. I know Yolanda worked really hard to send everything earlier this morning. There may have been a few more though. This application is for a multifamily district with deed restrictions volunteered by the applicant. The property is currently zoned a duplex district and it's located on the southwest corner of Ellsworth and McMillan Avenue. It's almost 2 acres, 1.821, And the applicant is proposing a shared access development with detached single-family units and deed restrictions which were volunteered, which prohibit multifamily uses and limit the density of the single-family development. The deed restrictions have been updated, and you may not have seen the most recent version. I'll share that with you in a moment. There's a location of the site and an error map showing that the property is developed with a church. And then we have the surrounding development, including single-family and duplexes to the north, east, and to the west, with a park further to the west and multifamily to the south. So they would like to permit multifamily uses and amend the development standards, reducing the setbacks and increasing the dwelling unit density by having the shared access development. They're able to accomplish that. And the remainder of the surrounding block is also zoned an MF2A district. So this aligns with the remainder of that block and the development standards which exist in the vicinity. The applicant would like a shared access development with up to 21 overall dwelling unit densities and 2 access points onto Ellsworth. And they had initially required architectural design standards for facades, which our attorneys did find aren't something that we can impose since the city is party to this zoning request or these volunteer deed restrictions. According to state law, we wouldn't be able to require them to have certain types of facade materials. So they are, however, prohibiting multifamily and short-term rental uses, and they've defined that in the revised deed restriction instrument, and they're limiting the number of stories to 2. The properties abutting the site to the west is zoned a multifamily district with deed restrictions with similar requirements. Here are photos of the site and surrounding properties. So we're looking at the church property. That's the corner right there off of Ellsworth. And now the surrounding land uses. This is in the interior. And to the south, the multifamily use. And the park is located to the west there. To the north, duplex uses. And the development standards, here are the changes that you would see in the adjustment from a duplex district to an MF2. They would be required to actually provide a greater setback due to adjacency. And then they have their density or minimum lot size requirements based off of the types of units that they provide on site if they did do multifamily. And the height remains the same, lot coverage as well. They're just adding that multifamily use. But as a shared access development, the site is considered one lot for compliance with the setbacks. But in the interior, the individual lots inside of the shared access development, all they have to meet is the minimum lot size requirement for the district. If it was duplex, it'd be 6,000 square feet. And these are the most recent deed restrictions that staff has reviewed. Our attorneys have already seen this. So again, the single family uses are restricted to 21 dwelling units. They have a maximum of 2 shared access points from Ellsworth and 2 onto McMillan Avenue. Multifamily uses are prohibited. Maximum height of dwelling units, or the maximum amount of stories, it should say, is 2. And then it defines the short-term rental since that's not a part of our code. Staff recommendation is approval subject to these revised deed restrictions, which were volunteered by the applicant.
Thank you very much, Ms. Munoz. Vice Chair Rubin.
Yeah, just a quick question, Ms. Munoz. Does the STR provision of deed restrictions line up with what ZOAC passed and what we'll be seeing later this month? Yes. Okay.
I do believe so, yes.
Any other questions on this item?
Mr. Chair.
Please, Commissioner Hadley.
Thank you. Ms. Munoz, just 2 quick questions. I understand, and this may be a question for the applicant, with the consideration of the deed restrictions that were volunteered by the applicant, do you know if there was any discussion of a site exhibit that would document the proposed site access that is outlined in those conditions?
I do not know.
Okay, and second follow-up on that, with the change to MF2, are you aware of how the setbacks would interface with the two frontages along Ellsworth and McMillan? Are they generally consistent because of how the structures are oriented on those two streets?
I believe that those would be two front yards, and so being a front yard, even with a shared access, they would still have to provide the minimum of 15 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Because the remainder of that block is a multifamily district.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions on this one? Okay, let's keep moving. Case number 10, Ms. Munoz.
Yes. Okay, 10 is Z2122383. Okay. This is an application for a specific use permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a general merchandise or food store greater than 3,500 square feet. The property is zoned as CRD1 Community Retail District with a D1 liquor control overlay, which is why the SUP is required for the sale of alcohol. It's located on the north corner of Cleanbrook Road and Carletta Street, and it's about half an acre. There's the subject site on this aerial map and the zoning map showing the adjacent land uses and zoning in the vicinity. To the northeast, we do have single family district, and it is undeveloped immediately adjacent to the site. And then once we cross Lanosa Lane, it is single family development there. There is a laundry facility located to the north, and there are additional single family across Clark Cliff Drive to the north as well. Across to the west or southwest, it is undeveloped and it's zoned a CRD1 as well. And to the southeast, we have additional general merchandise or food store and a church use. So on this one, I've also highlighted, excuse me. I've also highlighted some changes in red here. So the area of request, it's developed with a 4,060 square foot convenience store with motor vehicle fueling. This structure was erected in 1981 according to DCAD records, and they originally obtained an SUP for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with this store back in 2015. City Council did approve it initially for a 2-year period, and then it was renewed in October of 2018 for 3 years. Then after that 3-year period, right before it expired, current planning did send them a letter notifying them of the need to renew the SUP before it was to expire. However, they did not renew that SUP, and so it did expire on October 24th, 2021. Our zoning map still indicates the SUP there, as you've seen in the records in the map that is shown in our case report and that I showed you a moment ago, but it is an expired SUP, which is pending update to our map. This new application was received in June of 2022, after it had expired back in October of 2021. And at the time of this presentation, the representative has now submitted the sign posting affidavit, and 2 signs have been properly posted on the site, which are visible from the street. When I wrote my report, they had not done this, and I had followed up with them a few times. They were unable to come to current planning to obtain the 2 signs. The property had never been issued 2 signs. They had only obtained 1 sign from our division, and so they posted it on the interior of their window, which is not in accordance with the rules for posting notification. They were advised of these infractions, and they were told that they needed to make these changes. They did so, but after I had already presented the facts or the material in the case report. Additionally, when I wrote the report, they had just performed an inspection of the 12 VC store registration requirements, and they failed on October the 27th. The previous one was done over 1.5 years ago as well, and they had also failed that one. Many of the same infractions are still issues for the sites, although not all of them. And the officer did find that they were still selling alcohol at the time of their visit on October the 27th. They did advise the operator that they needed to immediately stop the sale of alcohol, as did I, because obviously, while they do have an up-to-date TABC license, they are technically not in compliance with that by not having an SUP and meeting the municipal regulations for maintaining the sale of alcohol at the site, and by not having their 12 BC store registration complete. So the representative has stated that after that inspection by PD that they stopped the sale of alcohol, although I am not able to confirm that. And this section, I did add it to your case report so that you'd be able to access it quickly in your consideration of whether or not you believe this application has been properly notified to the public with those posting signs. You do have to make the decision of whether to delay or deny the case without prejudice. It's up to you whether you find it to have been properly noticed in the form of posting of those signs. You can also elect to move forward if you do believe that they have provided the posting notification as required. So here is a view of the property. That's the Sid's Food Store. That's the location off of Kleberg Road and the surrounding properties. That was the laundry facility, and then undeveloped property that's located across Kleberg, and the other general merchandise or food store use. Now, this is the applicant's request in the application materials. They requested a 3-year initial SUP, and it's subject to the site plan. The site plan that they provided, this was the previously approved site plan. I did confirm that, the proposed site plan is the same. It's just clean and neat, and I appreciate that. So it's a good revised site plan if you do choose to move forward with this request. But overall, while the request to reinstate the sale of alcoholic, hold on one moment, please.
Does that conclude your presentation, Ms. Munoz? You're muted, Ms. Munoz.
Yes, I apologize. I
Okay.
have my work line attached to my computer, and somebody was calling me. So I had to mute that real quick. I apologize.
No worries.
So while I do believe that the request to reinstate the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with this land use is compatible with the surrounding retail and other non-residential uses, ultimately, staff could not support it at this time because of the issue with the minimum standards to renew the convenience store registration, the lack of posting signs on the property, and overall, for now, we do recommend denial or at minimum, delay of the request.
Questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Blair.
Ms. Munoz, am I correct to understand that after several requests that this particular applicant is just failed to comply with all the standards that the city has as well as TCBA?
According to TABC, their license is up to date. I do check that on the state website. However, I know that one of the requirements in obtaining their TABC license is to remain in compliance with the municipal regulations. They are not in compliance with municipal regulations as they've been operating for over 1.5 years without the C-store registration being up to date. And additionally, they've operated for over 1 year without an SUP.
So if they came into compliance with, well, okay, so we have not been able to verify that whether or not they have ceased the sale of alcohol, although they said they have, correct?
That's correct.
So I'm trying to understand a correct and an appropriate path forward. I understand that you're making the recommendation of denial, but you also said that there's a couple of options that are also available: denial without prejudice or to postpone and allow them to do all the things that they have failed to do in order to bring this into a state where they can get past the SUP process. Is that correct?
Correct, Commissioner Blair. So at this point, I think your primary item to consider is whether or not you believe that they have properly provided the posting notification to the public, and then you can move forward from there. If you feel your choices, if you feel that they have not properly posted signage at the site, are to either deny or to hold the case for a minimum of 4 weeks. And staff's recommendation is denial, but that's separate from what the first recommendation that you'd be making based off of the posting notification.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Young, please.
Ms. Munoz, do we have any information about what prompted the applicant to file this application in June after allowing the SUP to expire last October?
I have not been in contact with our community prosecution team, but the police officer who performed the CS registration inspection did tell me that community prosecution was also out there. I'm not sure if that's what prompted them, but they did end up with us in June.
Okay, thank you. One further question. I take it the applicant's not in agreement with your recommendation of denial.
No, they are not.
Well, and I'm a lawyer, so I lie when I say only one further question. My follow-up question is, how did this case wind up on the consent agenda with the applicant requesting approval and the staff recommending denial?
That was a mistake. I apologize.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
initially, the denial was decided pretty late after I had already written an approval. So I hoped
Okay.
that they could come to terms with a posting notification and make corrections before our docket deadline. So I think I confused everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, please.
Is staff recommendation flat denial, denial with prejudice or without, or is it leaving it to our discretion? Or I'm assuming you have a specific recommendation.
You know, the last time that this case came before CPC, they had similar issues, and the planner at the time did recommend denial without prejudice. I elected to remove that part because I do want to leave it in your purview. We're seeing a lot of the same issues over and again with this operator. That's up to you to decide.
Thank you. And I have one question for Ms. Udrea. It's been some time ago that we were seeing a lot of these cases that had not passed their 12B inspections, and we had asked that they not come to us. Is a pool of these accumulating somewhere that are just being held in limbo because, like this operator, they're not moving forward with passing their inspections?
So those inspections are annual and they are independent of the SUP, and those are for the convenience store. So they will have to pass it in order to operate the convenience store anyway. So that's a DPD inspection that it has nothing to do with the SUP. But we are trying to not move the SUPs forward unless they addressed everything. And that's why we pull the crime stats and these inspections. It depends sometimes, it depends on the planner, it depends on how the operator addresses those inspection comments. We sometimes give them a little bit of grace, like I had cases that I kept and I didn't schedule for CPC, but there are some situations where, like this one, where it's kind of evident that maybe it's better to deny the SUP. Exactly.
Thank you.
And honestly speaking, Commissioner Carpenter, I wasn't aware that we were holding cases based off of their 12B status. And I did take this on rather quickly from Mr. Aguilera and schedule it according to what it was supposed to be scheduled for, and then made a lot of discoveries which were not consistent with something I would typically bring to CPC immediately or this quickly. And so that's why there was so much last minute discussion with the applicant, as well as corrections of site issues, even down to the posting notification affidavit being missing, which hopefully we catch a lot sooner.
No, I completely understand why this case is coming to us with your recommendation for denial. It was cases, it came up in the past where cases were coming to us with recommendation for approval when they had not passed their 12B inspections.
Any other questions on this item, Commissioners? Please, Commissioner Blair.
And I don't know if it's for Ms. Munoz or Dr. Udrea. When we have a case like this that has community prosecution involvement, that says to me that it has greatly advanced in code violations. Would that be a great assumption to make here as well?
I'm not sure about the level of involvement of community prosecution with the site. I was just vaguely told about it by our police officer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Okay, so just FYI, at this moment, cases under advisement are only, I believe, 5 and 8. Excuse me, on the consent agenda. Thank you. Cases under advisement, we'll do after the lunch break. 11 will be just an update. We'll have full briefing on 12. 13 and 14 will both be held under advisement to December 15th. No? Okay, can you say it again?
The first case will be held under advisement until November the 17th. The second case will be renoticed and held until December the 15th.
The 15th, okay. So it is 12:04. That concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Planning Commission. Commissioners, enjoy your lunch. We'll be back online for the hearing at 12:30.
So we're holding that? She doesn't want to approve it?
No. She said,